And I'm here to tell you about something I'm truly passionate about. Metals are everywhere. They're absolutely everywhere in everything that we touch, so ingrained in our daily lives that we barely even notice them. For the transportation that got you to this room today, the trains, the planes, the automobiles, the electric vehicles, your smartphones, everything's smart nowadays, isn't it? You have smartphones, smartwatches, smart TVs. Even my oven is smarter than me. These are all comprised of precious metals. And if you think about it, every key inflection point throughout the history of human civilization has relied on metals, be it the Bronze Age or the Iron Age or the Industrial Revolution, for which Manchester was the focal point, the center point, the driving force, to the digital age that we currently find ourselves in. Metals are everywhere. So whether it was the currencies that helped us forge trade relationships, whether it was weapons that made empires or tools that advanced us to being able to cook and farm, metals have been the focal point. Where do metals come from then, since we rely on them so much? Metals are mined from the Earth's crust. You may all think of a miner, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, little pickaxe. 10 years ago, you wouldn't have heard of the term rare earth elements. No one really cared or knew what they were unless they moved in very specialist circles or learnt about them as I did. And now, rare earth elements are the center point of these growing geopolitical tensions all across the world. That's really because rare earth elements are so central to modern technology and advancing modern technology. So we're talking everything from national defense, so this is drone tech, radar technologies, all the way through to technologies that we rely on for the green transition. So your big wind turbines and solar panels, they all rely on rare earth elements. And I don't know why they're named that way, because they're not rare at all. What they are is very expensive to extract. And the problem here is that one country has a monopoly on the global supply of rare earth elements. So 90% of the total supply of global rare earth elements comes from one place. And that's an issue for any commodity or any chemical that we rely on, whether it's coal, gas, even energy supplies. So governments are really concerned about this, and this is causing mounting geopolitical tension. And what do we do about rare earth elements here in the UK? Well, we can't mine them ourselves because we don't have any really in our crust around the UK. We have a little bit of lithium down south, but that's not enough to meet the demands. So they have to be mined and imported. Mining is a process that's kind of looked the same throughout the centuries. It's kind of relied on the same 4 pillars, which are exploration, extraction, separation, and then refinement. So they have looked the same, but there's been introductions of automation and AI tools now, like with everything, to help build and forge new mines. The problem is that mine ore grades are falling, so we're actually having less and less of the metals that we want and rely on so heavily in the ore in the first place. So then it becomes really expensive and really demanding and requires so many chemicals to extract. The key bottleneck in the mining process is the separation step. And that's because metals are like identical twins. They're so difficult to tell apart. They have very similar chemical properties, magnetic properties in some cases. They have very similar sizes and charge. So it makes it super difficult to extract them and take them apart. I use the analogy of kind of brute forcing a heart shape into a star hole or a star into a heart-shaped hole, because the way that we do it is chemistry, and chemistry is more of a blanket technology. It's more of a one-size-fits-all. So sorry to any chemists in the room today, but it's a bit more of a technology of the past when it comes to mining. So let's take the case study of the smartphone, the humble smartphone. Everyone in this room has a smartphone. there's over 50 elements, 50 metals in the average smartphone. That's over 2/3 of the periodic table in your hand. That's crazy to me as a chemist. So dependent on the make, model, brand, and age of your smartphone, the composition of metals differs slightly. But we're going to take gold as a case study, and that's because everyone really likes gold. It's shiny. I personally love it. So dependent on all of those factors and all those variables, your smartphone can contain anywhere between 7 to 35 milligrams of gold. So if we go for a ballpark 25 milligrams, in this room right now, there's about 1,300 people, and if you all have a smartphone, using today's market value of gold, we're looking at around £4,000 worth of gold. And that equates to a sugar cube size of gold. Now, that doesn't sound like very much, but if we then extend that analogy to the other electronics in this room, be it the lighting system or the speakers or the PCs at the back that are keeping the show running, these all have gold trapped in them, gold to use them and depend on. And what do we do when these technologies reach the end of life? We're going to get a bit candid now. I know you all have one of these at home. I call it the drawer of doom. Some people call it the drawer of shame. It's really a graveyard for your old electronics. I am not innocent here. I'm completely guilty. I have iPhones dating back for decades. We've got cracked screens, we've got tablets, we've got old game consoles. We've got miles and miles of cabling that we don't even have the device that it charges anymore. Why do we stockpile these electronics? Is it because we don't know what to do with them? Probably. Is it because the proper electronic recycling facilities don't exist? Definitely. And even if it does reach electronic recycling facilities, less than a quarter of the metals are actually liberated from this technology. So what do we do with the rest of it? It may not surprise you to hear that the UK sends its problems elsewhere. Like with a lot of things, it exports and offshores its issues. So we actually ship our electronic waste to different places. We ship it to Africa, India, Malaysia, all over the place. So that's no longer our issue, right? In these countries and in these places, the electronic waste is burned in the open air, in uncontrolled processes, because there is no infrastructure or governing to any of these processes. It's leached with acid, just open. That acid containing metals leaches into the soil, finds its way into drinking water streams, has numerous environmental implications, but also think about the health implications on the people drinking that water, being exposed to that smoke. If all of this electronic waste and this massive stockpile has so much value, why are we exporting it and why are we making it other people's problems to deal with it? And as consumers, now there is a huge gap between wanting the newest technology, being flash, being trendy, trending, whatever it's called, and knowing where the materials used to make it comes from. Do we even really care if it's lighter or thinner or has more processing power? Do we ever ask at what cost? So that stockpile is growing and growing even more. What if there was a way to liberate the metals trapped in this electronic waste? What if we had one of those technologies here in Manchester? What if we could do this sustainably with a low-carbon approach? We don't need to burn anything. We don't need to use all of these toxic chemicals and all these separation steps. Enter the humble microbe. And this is where I get super excited because microbes are my absolute passion. Microbes are actually everywhere. They're absolutely everywhere in the air that we breathe, the water that we drink, in our gut, in our hair, in the soil. They genuinely make the world go round. And so microbes do this by carrying out chemical reactions. They're like a little cell factory. You know, they've got the blueprints and they can do all these different reactions. And they take very simple inputs and they spit out very complex molecules. They're also able to do the reverse of that. They take something very complex and break it down. And I'm a huge fan of the philosophical practice of first principles thinking. And all that is, thanks Aristotle, is breaking things down to their simplest forms, just like microbes do. So when I did my PhD, I could say the one good thing that came out of it is that I passed, and that's about it. It was touch and go at times. But the next best thing is that I met my co-founders, Dan and Ellie, and we were so passionately aligned on several aspects. One being that we really loved the idea of first principles thinking. We applied it to our science. The second was that we really shared a passion for microbes, be it using them to make therapeutics, as I was, making biofuels, or degrading plastics. We all loved microbes. And the next thing that we were so aligned on is we had a shared drive and passion and determination to solve a really pressing issue right now. And we identified that rare earth elements were at the pinnacle of some of these geopolitical tensions. We could also see that there was a growing stockpile of electronic waste that has all of these metals, not just rare earth elements, but other metals, and we could utilize them instead of relying on other countries. And we didn't want to just dip our toe into the problem. We didn't want to just dabble. We wanted to go for gold, quite literally. And so we threw ourselves at the issue, and that's where the company Lanthagen was born. Using microbes in industry is not like sci-fi. Before we even knew what microbes were, we were using them in processes for brewing, making beer, my favorite, cheese. And now we've moved on to using microbes to produce therapeutics, to make biofuels. And if we can use the same underlying principles that we're already using and apply it to this mounting stockpile of toxic waste, then we lessen our reliance on other countries. We can do this in a sustainable way. We can stop exporting our problems to other countries. So now, miners can look a little bit like this. If you think any of us have ever wielded a pickaxe before or got our hands dirty, you'd be absolutely wrong. We've not touched one. We haven't even been so far into a mine. But we've got this new mine now. We've got this stockpile of e-waste, which is it's an urban mine. So instead of digging more into the ground, we can turn to the urban mine and liberate those materials by using what nature has already dictated. Microbes they've been going around for centuries. They've been evolving and adapting. And they can live and survive in really harsh conditions where metals are really rich. And they can do chemistry that we could never carry out ourselves. We haven't got those years of evolution behind us. So the question then isn't, do we have the resources? Do we have the resilient feedstocks? We've got so much of that electronic waste, and that pile's growing. By the year 2050, we will be generating 100 million tons of e-waste globally. And if we don't start doing something about it, we're going to be living on piles of e-waste. We actually are already. The question now becomes, are we going to carry on letting waste define us, or are we going to let biology redefine waste? Thank you.